The sun had barely risen when Cynthia stood at the edge of her village road. A faded backpack slung over her shoulder and her mother's trembling hands wrapped tightly around hers. The dust swirled gently around her sandals as chickens darted by, indifferent to the moment that felt like the beginning of everything. Her father, Pastor Nwokedi, placed his hands gently on her head and prayed in a low, firm voice. "Lord, guide my daughter in the land of lions. May no harm touch her. May she return home in joy, not sorrow." Cynthia's mother, Mama Ifeoma, couldn't stop touching her. She pulled a plastic bag from her wrapper and handed it to Cynthia. Inside were 2 small bottles of water and a pouch of roasted ground nuts. "You must eat, no matter where you go," her mother said. "And don't trust anyone too quickly." Cynthia smiled softly, the corners of her mouth hiding the impatience building inside her. Her eyes weren't on the bag or the prayers. They were locked on the open road ahead, the dusty track that would take her to the bus stop, to Lagos, to wealth, to something bigger than this slow-burning village life. "I'll be fine," she said. "I promise." Her father gave her a last, searching look. "Cynthia, your beauty is a blessing, but don't let it become your curse," she laughed. "Papa, I'm just going to find work and help you both. Lagos is full of opportunities. I'll be smart." The bus was late, as usual. The engine coughed like an old man in a storm when it finally pulled up, half covered in rust, half covered in faded religious stickers. Cynthia climbed aboard without looking back. Her parents faded into the morning dust as the vehicle lurched forward. Inside, the bus was hot and cramped. A baby cried. A woman argued with the conductor over change, and the driver chewed something bitter-smelling that made his jaw twitch, but Cynthia barely noticed. Her eyes were locked on the window as the world she knew unraveled behind her. Soon, clay huts gave way to concrete houses. Concrete houses gave way to billboards and power lines. The road widened, the traffic thickened, the air shifted. This was it. This was Lagos. She had seen the city in films and Instagram videos. Women with Brazilian wigs and designer bags, men in Bentleys with gold chains swinging like pendulums. She had listened to tales of village girls who arrived in Lagos with nothing but a dream and ended up driving Range Rovers in less than 6 months. Now it was her turn. The bus squealed to a stop near Ojota. Cynthia stepped off, blinking at the chaos. It was louder than she'd imagined. Cars honked like wild animals. Vendors shouted over each other. The air was a stew of roasted meat, sweat, perfume, and diesel fumes. She didn't flinch. She adjusted the hem of her dress, tight, bright, and short, and walked straight to a nearby hotel with the confidence of someone who believed fate owed her something. It wasn't a fancy place. The sign outside read Happy Rest Lodge, and half the letters flickered when the power came on. Still, it was a start. Inside, the manager, a stocky man with tired eyes and a gold-plated wristwatch, looked up from his desk. "Good afternoon," Cynthia said sweetly. "Do you have a room?" He stared at her longer than necessary. She was striking. Smooth brown skin, natural long hair tucked behind her ears, a dress that clung like second skin. She looked too clean for this part of town. "Yes, we have." "How many nights?" "Just one, for now." That night, in the tiny room with peeling wallpaper and a bed that creaked when she sat on it, Cynthia stood naked in front of the mirror. She turned slowly, examining her figure from every angle. She whispered to her reflection, "Lagos men, get ready. Queen Cynthia has arrived." The next morning, she dressed in her most revealing outfit, red lipstick, silver earrings, the scent of a knockoff designer perfume. Then she went straight to the hotel's reception and asked to speak with the manager. His name was Emeka. "Sir, I need your help," she said, crossing her legs with casual elegance. "I didn't come to Lagos to sweep floors or sell sachet water. I need to meet someone, a man, a powerful one. I heard people like you know people like him." Emeka blinked, caught between surprise and caution. "You don't waste time, do you?" "I'm serious," Cynthia said. "I want to change my life. I'll do anything for the right connection. I'll even give you 20% of everything I get from him." He coughed. "You know what you're asking for?" "I'm not asking for trouble. I'm asking for opportunity." Emeka leaned back in his chair and studied her. "How old are you?" 20. "You've never done this before?" "No, sir. I'm still a virgin." The silence in the room thickened like soup left too long on fire. Emeka's eyebrows rose. "A virgin? In Lagos? You're rare. Do your parents know what you're here to do?" "No. They think I'm here to look for a cleaning job to pay for school." Emeka shook his head. "You're not ready for this place. Lagos is not your village. This city chews girls like you and spits them out in pieces." "I'm ready," Cynthia said. He was quiet for a long moment, then stood. "I have a man, Obi, very rich, drives a Rolls Royce. But what? His money comes too fast. No one knows what he really does. I don't trust him, but he's been asking for someone like you." Cynthia didn't blink. "Connect me." That night, a black Rolls-Royce Phantom pulled into the hotel parking lot. The headlights sliced through the dusty air like blades. Cynthia stood by the door, heart racing but face composed. When Obi stepped out, her breath caught. He was young, tall, skin like carved mahogany, wearing a white silk shirt and sunglasses even though it was nearly dark. A gold wristwatch gleamed. On his arm like a weapon, he looked at her and smiled. That smile was the start of everything. Obi's smile could melt ice. He walked toward Cynthia with the poise of a man who never heard the word no. The hotel's lobby lights bounced off his gold watch and diamond-studded belt buckle. Cynthia held her breath. She had imagined meeting someone like him, maybe even dreamed it. But reality felt richer, heavier. "You must be Cynthia," Obi said, voice like polished wood. "And you must be the man I was promised," she replied with a smile. They shook hands. His palm was warm and firm. His eyes didn't leer. They studied her like she was something rare, not a girl, a jewel. Emeka stood nearby, pretending to scroll on his phone but watching every move. Obi gestured toward the VIP lounge. "Shall we sit?" They entered a dim, velvet-lined room where soft jazz played from hidden speakers. A waiter appeared, almost magically with a bottle of expensive red wine. "No need to ask," Obi said. "I already know your taste." Cynthia tilted her head. "Do you always assume so much?" "No," he said, pouring her a glass. "But with you, I'm willing to take a few risks." She sipped the wine, pretending to know what to expect. "It tasted like luxury and danger. What brings a girl like you to a place like this?" Obi asked, leaning back. "I could ask you the same," she replied. "But I'll go first. I came to Lagos to build a new life. I want more. I deserve more." He raised a brow. "And you think I can give it to you?" "I think," she said, slowly, "that you have the power to open doors. I'm not here to play games. I want to win." Obi smiled again, this time slower, deeper. "You're different," he said. "Most girls who chase me are already broken, but you're still intact." There was weight behind the word, and Cynthia felt it land. After an hour of wine, jokes, and light flirtation, Obi stood up. "Come with me." Emeka's eyes narrowed from across the lounge. He followed them out discreetly as they walked to the hotel parking lot. There it was. The Rolls-Royce Phantom gleamed under the streetlight, like a spaceship made of gold and silence. Obi opened the passenger door for her. "Queen deserves to ride like royalty." Cynthia hesitated for a split second, then slid in. Inside, the car smelled of leather, oud, and money. The seats hugged her body like a secret. Obi closed the door behind her, walked around, and slid into the driver's seat with casual grace. "Where are we going?" she asked. "Home," he replied. "Let me show you my world." The mansion stood like a dream carved into a hill. Marble columns, an electric gate, security guards in uniforms. Inside, the house was a temple of luxury. Gold-plated railings, a crystal chandelier bigger than her old bedroom, rugs soft enough to sleep on. Cynthia took it all in without blinking. Obi walked her through the halls like a tour guide who owned every continent. "This is where I breathe," he said. "And from now on, you'll breathe here too." She turned to him, half laughing. "Is that your way of asking me to stay?" "It's my way of saying you belong." He led her to a bedroom fit for royalty. The sheets were silk. The pillows looked hand-stitched by angels. Obi didn't touch her. He didn't try. Instead, he looked at her like someone who'd found treasure and didn't want to damage it by rushing. "I know what you are," he whispered. "And I'll wait." Cynthia's heart beat too loud for comfort. Something about him both reassured and unsettled her. The next morning, sunlight filtered through satin curtains. She found Obi in the kitchen, yes, the kitchen, pouring juice and humming an old song. "You cook too?" she teased. "I do many things," he replied, handing her a plate of toast and fruit. "But today is forgiving." Later that morning, he drove her to a luxury car dealership. Before she could ask what they were doing there, he tossed her a set of keys. "A Range Rover Velar," he said. "Pearl white. It reminded me of your skin." Cynthia stared at him, speechless. The car sparkled under the sun like a newly crowned queen. She touched the hood, half expecting it to vanish like a mirage. "Why?" she finally asked. "Why me?" Obi turned serious. "Because I've waited for someone like you. Someone untouched. Someone pure." There it was again, that word. Pure. She didn't want to overthink it. Maybe he was just poetic. He drove her back home that afternoon, fingers drumming against the steering wheel to a silent rhythm. As they pulled into the hotel, Emeka was waiting by the door. Cynthia stepped out like a star returning from her red carpet moment. Emeka's eyes flicked from her to Obi to the car. "Nice wheels," he said dryly. Obi nodded at him. "Thank you for the introduction." "I hope you know what you're doing," Emeka said under his breath to Cynthia when Obi walked away. "I do," she replied. "For once, I feel like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. Just be careful. Money like his doesn't come without shadows." Cynthia smiled. "I'm not scared of the dark." Over the next few weeks, Obi flooded her world with gifts, a diamond bracelet, a Louis Vuitton handbag, a private chef. He arranged for her to attend an exclusive cybersecurity boot camp, insisting she should have a skill to match her looks. He was doting, attentive, and impossibly generous, but never once did he pressure her for sex. Instead, he'd hold her hand and say things like, "Your body is sacred. I want your mind first." To Cynthia, it felt almost too good to be true. One night she asked him, "What do you actually do, Obi?" "I'm an importer," he said without hesitation. "Of what?" He smiled. "Everything. I deal in opportunities." She laughed. "That's the most vague answer I've ever heard." "You'll understand in time." But she didn't press. Him. Why ruin perfection? One night, after a lavish dinner at a rooftop restaurant in Ikoyi, he handed her a velvet box. Inside was a necklace. Diamonds. Real ones. "I want you to wear this whenever you think of me," he said. Cynthia leaned over and kissed him gently on the cheek. "I think of you all the time." At the hotel, Emeka watched her transform from the wide-eyed village girl to Lagos elite. Her cheeks glowed, her clothes screamed status, her phone rang endlessly. But each time he saw her, he grew more uneasy. One evening, he pulled her aside. "Cynthia, you remember what I told you?" "Which part?" "The part where I said Lagos is not your village, that it bites harder than it kisses." She rolled her eyes. "Why are you always so dramatic?" "Because I've seen girls like you fly too close to the sun. And when they fall, they burn alone." "I'm not most girls, Emeka." He looked at her a long moment. "You're right. You're not. That's what scares me." Cynthia laughed. It off. She had Obi. She had the car, the house, the life she dreamed of. What could possibly go wrong? Cynthia was no longer just a girl from the village. She was the queen of Lagos. Her photos were everywhere. Instagram, TikTok, even WhatsApp status. Updates of people she'd never met. She posed in designer dresses beside her pearl-white Range Rover, her hair always perfectly styled, nails gleaming, eyes fierce. The caption on one of her most shared posts read, "From roots to riches, Lagos made me," and everyone believed it. Socialites invited her to their private brunches. Fashion brands sent her PR packages. Up-and-coming musicians begged her to appear in their music videos. Cynthia had become more than a name. She was an aesthetic, but she didn't forget her roots. When Obi asked if she wanted to visit her family, she said yes immediately. "I want them to see me like this," she said, adjusting the gold chain around her neck. "And they should." Obi smiled. "You've become a woman." They drove to her village in a convoy of 2 cars. Obi's personal security followed behind discreetly, dressed in black. When they arrived, Cynthia's parents could barely recognize her. Mama Ifeoma burst into tears. "My daughter, look at you, look at you!" Papa Nwokedi stood frozen. "Is this really you, Cynthia?" "It's me, Papa, just upgraded," she laughed. They held her like she might vanish again. And when Obi stepped forward with a gentle smile and offered them both a respectful handshake, they welcomed him like royalty. "I brought a little something for you," he said casually, pointing toward a truck that had just pulled in behind them. It carried bricks, tiles, paint, wood, everything needed to build a new home. "Your daughter deserves to have her parents in comfort," Obi said. That month, construction began. A 3-bedroom bungalow rose from the red earth like a gift from heaven. The villagers gathered daily to watch the progress, whispering among themselves. "She did all this in how many months? And she's still young, oh. You see what Lagos can do?" Other girls from the village avoided their mother's eyes. Some were scolded. "You better go and be like Cynthia, or hunger will finish you here." Cynthia watched it all with pride, but also with a flicker of discomfort she didn't understand. Back in Lagos, she resumed her cybersecurity boot camp. The course was intense, 12-hour days, complex systems, ethical hacking, digital forensics. But Cynthia was sharp, focused. She wanted to be more than a pretty face. Obi made sure she had everything she needed: a custom laptop, a private tutor on weekends, a workspace in his mansion. "You're going to be my cyber queen," he told her one night, brushing her hair as she worked on a code assignment. "Brains and beauty. Don't forget ambition," she added. He kissed her forehead. Never. Life seemed perfect, until the silence crept in. It started subtly, a sudden stillness in the house when Obi wasn't around. The absence of sound in places where there should have been noise. The hum of the fridge, the chirp of her phone, the whir of the air conditioner. One evening, as she lay in bed scrolling through social media, her screen froze. The battery hadn't died. The app hadn't crashed. It just stopped, then resumed. Cynthia blinked. Weird. Another night, she heard footsteps in the hallway, soft but measured. She assumed it was the maid, until she remembered the maid was off that day. She Got up, opened the door. Nothing. The hallway stretched empty, lit only by the faint glow from a chandelier upstairs. Maybe it was just the pipes, she whispered to herself. She was trying to be logical, but the feeling didn't go away. At her next class, she found it hard to focus. While the instructor was explaining brute force attacks, Cynthia found her thoughts drifting. Was someone watching her? When she got home that evening, the house was exactly how she left it. Neat. Silent. Too silent. She went upstairs. Her door creaked when she opened it. She stopped and stared at her bed. The pillows were fluffed. Differently. She hadn't left them that way. "Obi!" she called out, even though she knew he wasn't there. She walked to the bathroom. The trash bin beside the toilet was empty. Too empty. Her stomach dropped. She remembered, clearly, putting a used menstrual pad in there that morning, wrapped tightly in tissue. She'd been in a rush, but she was sure. Now it was gone. She checked under the sink. Nothing. She even opened the cabinet where cleaning supplies were kept, everything untouched. The maid hadn't returned yet. Obi was at work, and Cynthia hadn't. Left the house all day. So who had come in? That night, she couldn't sleep. She lay beside Obi, listening to him breathe. His chest rose and fell in perfect rhythm, like nothing existed beyond his dreams. Cynthia turned toward the ceiling, heart pounding. She didn't say a word, didn't ask him, didn't accuse, because she wasn't ready for the answer. The next day, she tried to ignore it. She went shopping, took selfies, visited a friend in Lekki, pretended her world hadn't tilted slightly off-center, but when she got home and passed the mirror in the hallway, she froze. Something was off. She stepped closer. At first, she couldn't tell what. Her reflection looked normal, same outfit, same face. But then, behind her, there was a blur, a faint, dark blur, like a shadow that wasn't hers. She turned around. Nothing. She turned back to the mirror. Nothing. "Okay, I need to chill," she muttered, forcing a laugh. She went to the fridge, poured a glass of wine, and sat by the window, trying to steady herself. Was this anxiety? Was it guilt? No, it was something else. Something older, heavier, like the kind of stories the old women in her village used to tell around firewood stoves, about spirits, about blood, about the dangers of being too wanted. That night, as Obi curled up beside her in bed, wrapping his arm around her waist, she asked him quietly, "Do you ever feel watched in this house?" Obi didn't move. "No," he said. "Why?" "I don't know. Sometimes it just feels like someone's here, even when we're alone." He lifted himself on one elbow and kissed her shoulder. "This house is protected," he said. "Nothing can harm you here." "That's not what I asked." He looked at her for a long second. Then, "Do you trust me?" Cynthia met his eyes. They were dark, deep, unreadable. She nodded. "I do." But even as the words left her lips, she wasn't sure they were true. It was a quiet Thursday morning when Cynthia first noticed it. The small trash bin beside the toilet was empty. Not just empty, spotless. It wasn't something she'd normally think twice about. But this time, she stood there, frozen, her towel clutched tightly around her. The bathroom floor was still wet from her shower, steam fogging the mirror. And yet, the bin looked like it had just been scrubbed, like no one had used it in days. But she knew she had, just 3 hours ago. Her period had started that morning. She remembered clearly. The pad she'd worn was soaked, wrapped tightly in layers of tissue, and dropped into that exact bin. Gone. Her first thought was, maybe I threw it somewhere else and forgot. Her second, maybe the maid came in and cleaned up. But the maid had Thursdays off. Cynthia herself had told her not to come. She wanted the house to herself. Still wrapped in her towel, she padded barefoot into the hallway and called out, "Obi?" No response. He was at work. She returned to the bathroom, opened the under-sink cabinet, and stared blankly at the half-used cleaning products. The room smelled faintly of antiseptic. Too faint. Like something had been wiped, but not sprayed. Her skin prickled. She tried to push the thought away. Maybe I flushed it. Maybe I was distracted. But even as she told herself that, she knew it wasn't true. She remembered wrapping it. She remembered dropping it into the bin. She had seen the blood. Now it was gone. That night, Obi returned home with takeout from her favorite Thai restaurant. He entered the house with his usual charm, humming a song, swinging the food bags like they were gifts from a distant land. Cynthia greeted him with a kiss and tried to act normal. During dinner, she watched him closely. He ate as he always did, slow, deliberate bites, chewing like each meal was a ritual. She almost asked, but what would she say? "Hey, did you sneak in while I was in the shower and steal my used pad?" She couldn't say that. Instead, she said, "Did you come home earlier today?" Obi shook his head. "No. I had back-to-back meetings." She nodded, pretending it was a casual question. "Just felt like I heard something upstairs, probably my imagination." He smiled. "This house messes with your head when you're alone." But it wasn't the house. It was her body. It was her blood. A month passed. The incident faded to the back of her mind, buried under brunches, coding classes, and late-night drives with Obi. Life returned to its rhythm, until it happened again. Second day of her period. She followed the same routine. Changed, wrapped, dropped it in the bin. That afternoon, she returned to the bathroom. The pad was gone. Not only that, the entire bin was gone, vanished. She stood in the doorway, breathing hard. This time, there was no steam, no confusion. She hadn't left the house. The maid hadn't come. The only person with access was... She marched downstairs. Obi was in the living room watching a documentary about African monarchs. "Did you move the trash bin from my bathroom?" He paused the show, confused. "What bin?" "The small one, by the toilet." "No," he said slowly. "Why would I touch your bin?" She studied him. Nothing in his face wavered. "Just asking," she said, stepping back. "It's gone. I can get you another one." "I don't want another one," she muttered. "I want to know where mine went." Obi stood, walked over, and cupped her face gently. "You're overthinking again. Relax. This house is huge. Maybe the maid moved it to clean and forgot to put it back." "She wasn't here today. I'll talk to her tomorrow." He kissed her forehead, held her close. "Don't let little things mess with your peace, my queen." But it wasn't a little thing. It was her blood, and it had vanished twice. That night, sleep refused to come. Cynthia lay awake, staring at the ceiling fan spinning in lazy circles. Her heart beat faster than it should. Her thoughts tangled like wires in a storm. She thought of her mother's voice, soft and firm at the same time. "Some men don't chase you for love. They chase you for power." She thought of the stories the old women used to whisper under the mango tree. Stories she had laughed at as a teenager about men who took a woman's used menstrual pad and used it in rituals to bind her, to control her spirit, to drain her destiny. She had called those stories nonsense. Now they echoed louder than the ceiling fan. The next day, Cynthia didn't go to class. Instead, she drove to a quiet herbal market deep in the mainland, the kind of place her Lagos friends would never be caught in. She walked past women selling cowrie shells, herbs wrapped in banana leaves, bottles filled with strange liquids. She stopped in front of an older woman wearing a faded scarf and layers. Of handmade beads. The woman looked at her. Long, hard. You're not here for herbs, the woman said. Cynthia's mouth went dry. No, the woman nodded. Someone has touched your blood. Cynthia's throat tightened. How did you know? Your eyes, the woman said. They're screaming. Tears welled up before Cynthia could stop them. What does it mean? It means you're not safe. Someone is using your blood to call your name in the night, to tie you, to own you. Cynthia stepped back. What can I do? You must find what they took. Destroy it, or you will never be free. That night, Cynthia didn't speak to Obi. She pretended to be tired, pretended not to notice when he asked if everything was okay, pretended to sleep while he watched TV in the other room. When the house went still, she got up, checked every cabinet, every drawer, every closet. Nothing. At 2:45 a.m., she stood in the middle of the hallway, breathing hard, her skin crawling with the sensation of eyes that weren't there. A whisper passed behind her. Not a word. Just wind that moved with intention. She spun. Nothing. Her reflection in the mirror stared back at her, pale, shaken, and behind her, again, that same blur, a little darker this time. She turned, again, nothing. She clutched her chest, whispered, "What? Are you trying to show me?" No answer. Just silence, thick and humming. The next morning, Cynthia called the maid. "Did you clean my bathroom yesterday?" "No, madam," the girl said. "I wasn't here." "Are you sure? You didn't come. In for any reason?" "I swear, madam, I haven't entered that room since last week." Cynthia hung up without replying. She sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the window, where the sun filtered through gently like nothing was wrong. But everything was. She could feel it now. Not just suspicion, not paranoia. A truth, crouching, in the corners of her house, waiting to be named. Cynthia didn't wait for permission to walk into the lobby of Happy Rest Lodge. She hadn't been back in weeks, not since her life had exploded into diamonds, Range Rovers, and viral photos. Now she stood in the same worn-out reception area, her presence still electric, but her expression different. There was no arrogance in her walk, no glamour in her eyes, just questions. Amika looked up from behind the desk, startled. "Cynthia?" She didn't smile. "I need to talk." He gestured toward the small office behind him. She stepped in, closed the door, and sat without invitation. "You look different," he said. "I feel different. What's wrong?" Cynthia leaned forward, voice low. "Tell me the truth. What do you really know about Obi?" Amika froze. The room seemed to shrink. He rubbed his jaw slowly. "Why are you asking?" "Because something's wrong. Strange things are happening in that house. Things I can't explain." "Like what?" She hesitated. Then, "My used pads go missing every single month." Amika blinked. Cynthia continued. "No one admits to cleaning them. I live with a man who's obsessed with purity, who never talks about his business, who never asks for sex but stares at me like he owns me." She paused, watching him closely. "You said his money comes too fast. You warned me. Now I'm asking you again. Who is he?" Amika exhaled deeply, leaned back, and stared at the ceiling for a long second. "Some men in Lagos are not just rich," he said finally. "They're powered." Cynthia frowned. "What do you mean?" "People like Obi don't get wealthy by chance. They belong to things, societies, brotherhoods, cults. You think you're in love, but you're a transaction, an offering." A cold wind seemed to pass through her bones. "Why didn't you tell me this before?" she asked. "I tried. You laughed. You said you didn't come to Lagos to clean toilets." Cynthia's hands trembled on her lap. "Is it possible he's using me?" "I don't know. But I've heard stories. Girls who go in glowing and come out shadows. Dead, worse, forgotten. She stood abruptly, face pale. "I need to know what he's hiding." "Cynthia, be careful." But she was already walking out. That evening, the house felt darker than usual. Obi had gone to a meeting, and the silence crept in like fog. Cynthia sat in front of her laptop, her boot camp textbook spread open beside her. Her fingers hovered over the keys. She took a deep breath. Then she started digging. First, she scanned Obi's devices, his router logs, his shared drives, even a smartwatch that auto-synced to his cloud. It wasn't easy. He was careful. But Cynthia was trained now, and desperation gave her focus. 2 hours in, she hit something, a hidden folder buried beneath layers of encrypted storage. Inside were dozens of image files, PDFs, scans of old letters, ritual diagrams, charts, pages. From what looked like handwritten journals, she clicked one file at random and recoiled. A photo of a young woman, maybe 22, smiling beside Obi in a hotel. Cynthia recognized the setting. She clicked another. A different woman. This one thinner, paler, eyes dull, and another, and another. They all had one thing in common. They were beautiful, young, and looked more tired in each successive image. She clicked on a text file named Initiation Protocol.txt. It read like a horror script. Target must be a virgin. After first sexual contact, extract blood monthly. Storage in sacred vessel recommended. Full. Submission guaranteed by month 6. Avoid physical harm. Emotional dependency must remain intact. Last phase, withdrawal of life essence, must coincide with lunar calendar to avoid energy imbalance. Cynthia felt the bile rise in her throat. She scrolled faster. Another file. Client log 6. It listed names, dates, and codes. Her name was there, last on the list. Beside it, essence, harvesting, active, phase 5. Her vision blurred. Her hands were shaking. She tried to stand, but her knees buckled. She crawled to the bed and sat, gasping for breath. Obi wasn't in love with her. He was feeding on her. At 2 a.m., she couldn't sleep. She wandered to the hallway mirror barefoot, barely breathing. She looked at her reflection for a long time, then it moved. Not her, but the reflection. A figure appeared behind her. A woman in a white dress, face pale, hair long and loose, her eyes hollow and wet. Cynthia turned, heart in her throat. No one. She looked back at the mirror. The woman was still there, and she was staring right at her. "Who are you?" Cynthia whispered. The woman tilted her head, mouth barely moving. "I was the one before you." Tears welled in Cynthia's eyes. "What happened to you?" The woman blinked. "He took my blood, my soul. Now I live inside the mirror, waiting." "Why didn't you leave?" "I couldn't. I was bound, like you." Cynthia reached out and touched the glass. "I want to help you." The woman gave a sad smile. "Save yourself first." The next morning, Obi returned home with flowers and a brand new iPhone. Cynthia smiled and kissed his cheek. She didn't let him see her terror. That afternoon, while he showered, she returned to the laptop and copied everything, every document, photo, and file, to a hidden drive. Later that night, she lay beside him while he slept. His arm draped across her, heavy and warm like a shackle. Cynthia stared at the ceiling, her mind alive with fire. She now knew the truth, but escape was a different story. The house was still, soaked in silence, thick enough to choke on. It was nearly 2 hours a.m., and Cynthia stood in the hallway barefoot, clutching the master key she had quietly taken from Obi's drawer hours before. The air smelled faintly of incense, sandalwood, and something bitter beneath it. She had waited all night for this moment. Obi was asleep, or so she hoped. His deep breathing from the bedroom had remained steady for over an hour, rising and falling, like waves against a cursed shore. Cynthia's hand trembled as she slid the key into the old bronze lock on the storage room door. It turned with a soft click, almost too easy. The door creaked open. Darkness poured out like smoke. She stepped inside, heart pounding. It was a small room, barely larger than a closet, but it felt ancient, as if time slowed inside it. The smell hit her first. Rot and herbs, damp earth and something metallic, like rusted iron. She found the light switch and flicked it. Nothing. Of course. She pulled out her phone and turned on the flashlight. The beam cut through the dark and landed on a small clay pot in the center of the floor. It was resting on a low wooden stool, partially covered by a red cloth embroidered with strange black symbols. Cynthia stepped closer. Her breath caught. The cloth pulsed slightly as if it were breathing. She peeled it back slowly, every nerve in her body screaming for her to stop. Inside the pot, wrapped carefully in layers of stained tissue, were used menstrual pads. Hers. All of them. Each one folded with disturbing precision, soaked in blood that had long since dried into maroon crusts. Cynthia gagged. She staggered back, pressing both hands to her mouth. She had seen things online, read threads about rituals, about how blood, especially a virgin's, was the purest offering in certain circles. But seeing her own DNA stacked like trophies inside a pot made her knees buckle. She leaned against the wall, sliding down slowly until she sat on the cold tile floor, arms wrapped around her legs, shivering. That's when she felt it, a hand on her shoulder. She screamed and jumped to her feet, spinning around. Obi stood in the doorway, his expression unreadable. He was shirtless, his gold chain hanging loosely around his neck, eyes calm, but flat, like glass over a void. "Looking for something?" he asked softly. Cynthia's throat closed. He stepped inside the room, barefoot like her, his presence overwhelming the space. I couldn't sleep," she stammered. He looked at the pot, then at her. "You weren't supposed to see that," he said, voice low. Cynthia backed away slowly. Why do you have these?" Obi didn't answer immediately. He picked up the red cloth and gently placed it back over the pot like it was something sacred. Then he turned to her. "I love you, Cynthia." She flinched. "That's not love." "It is. The purest kind. You don't understand it yet, but you will. You stole my blood. My body, I protected you," he interrupted, stepping closer. "You don't know the world I live in. There are things, powers, always hungry, but they don't feed on just anything. They want energy, essence, and you—" He cupped her cheek gently. "You are the most powerful energy I've ever touched." She pulled away, trembling. "You're using me. I'm preserving you. You're killing me." Obi's smile flickered. "No, I'm making you eternal." She ran from the room, tears streaking her face, body shaking. Obi didn't follow. He let her go. That scared her more than if he had chased her. Later that morning, the house seemed unchanged. Birds chirped outside the window. The cook arrived and began preparing breakfast like nothing was wrong. Cynthia sat at the kitchen table staring at her cup of tea, untouched. Obi entered the room dressed in a tailored linen suit, acting as if the previous night had never happened. "I got you something," he said. She didn't respond. He pulled out a velvet box and placed it gently in front of her. Inside, a diamond ring, big, sparkling, impossible to ignore. "I want you to wear this," he said. "It's a promise that you belong, that you're safe." Cynthia stared at the ring like it was a weapon. He leaned closer. "Don't be afraid. Everything I've done, it's been for us." She nodded slowly like a puppet and slipped. the ring onto her finger. But inside, she was screaming. The days that followed blurred. Cynthia went through the motions, attending classes, taking photos, smiling when expected. But she was a shadow of herself. The weight of the ring on her finger felt unbearable. Obi hovered constantly, always watching, always touching. She once woke up in the middle of the night to find him brushing her hair gently while she slept. He didn't stop when she opened her eyes. "You have such a calming energy," he whispered. Cynthia smiled weakly, her body stiff. She no longer felt human. She felt owned. One night, as they sat on the balcony sipping wine, Obi turned to her. "Tell me something," he said. "Do you believe in destiny?" Cynthia hesitated. "I don't know anymore." "I do," he said. "I believe you were created for me, that everything in your life led you here, that you were always meant to be mine." She stared out into the night, blinking back tears. Obi took her hand and kissed it gently. "I know you're scared, but don't be. I would never hurt you. That would be like hurting myself." His words wrapped around her like vines, and she realized, the scariest. Prison isn't the one with bars. It's the one where you're kissed goodnight. The decline began quietly. Cynthia started waking up tired, not groggy, drained, like her body had run a marathon in her sleep. Her reflection in the mirror became unfamiliar. Her cheeks hollowed, her collarbones sharpened. Her once glowing skin dulled, losing its youthful sheen. She changed the filters on her phone camera to mask it. But no filter could hide the ache in her bones or the heaviness behind her eyes. Obi noticed. Of course he did. But he acted like everything was fine. "You just need rest," he said, brushing her hair one morning. "You've been studying too hard. Stress can do strange things to the body." Cynthia nodded weakly, but this wasn't stress. It was decay. Over the next few weeks, it worsened. Her appetite vanished. Her period stopped. Her once voluptuous figure flattened. Even her voice lost its edge, growing faint like someone whispering through a wall. She went to hospitals, private ones, expensive ones. Run every test available. "Your vitals are normal," one doctor said. "You're perfectly healthy on paper." "Then why do I feel like I'm dying?" she asked. The doctor blinked, unsure how to respond. Cynthia knew the answer. She was being harvested. Every month, her blood was taken, and now her spirit was slipping away piece by piece. She lay in bed for days, unmoving, while Obi fed her soup and vitamins she didn't ask for. He never looked worried, only watchful, like a farmer protecting his most valuable crop. One afternoon, she woke from a nap and found Obi watching her from across the room. Not sitting, just standing in the doorway silently. "How long have you been there?" she asked, her voice cracking. He smiled. "Long enough to know you're still breathing." "Why does that matter so much to you?" she asked. "I'm not living, I'm rotting." Obi walked over and placed a kiss on her forehead. "Because life is power, and you're still full of it." She turned her face away. That night, Cynthia found herself sitting on the bathroom floor with a knife in her hand. The blade was small, one of the ones Obi kept in the kitchen for fruit. She didn't remember bringing it upstairs. Maybe her body moved on its own. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe it was mercy. Her hand trembled as she pressed the blade lightly against her wrist. Her tears came faster than her resolve. End it, now, before he takes everything. She closed her eyes, ready to cut. That's when the door slammed open. Obi stood there, eyes wide, voice calm but deadly. "What are you doing?" She froze. He crossed the room in 3 strides and snatched the knife from her hand. "Are you insane?" he shouted. "I'm already dead," she screamed back. "You're just keeping my body alive for your rituals." He slapped her, not Hard, but hard enough. She gasped. Silence bloomed in the room like smoke. Obi's chest heaved. He lowered the knife slowly, then dropped to his knees beside her. "I'm sorry," he whispered, holding her shaking frame. "I panicked. I thought I'd lose you." "You were never going to lose me," she said, her voice hollow, "because you made sure I couldn't leave." He didn't deny it. He just rocked her gently, like a mother with a fevered child. For days, she barely spoke. She stopped leaving the room. Obi brought her flowers, gifts, new clothes, but she left everything unopened. She stared out the window for hours, wondering if the sky outside was still real. Then one evening, she made a decision. She would run. At 3 a.m., Cynthia slipped quietly, out of bed. Obi was snoring softly, one arm across her waist. She lifted it slowly, carefully, and slid off the mattress like a ghost. She moved barefoot down the hall toward the front door. The lock turned with a soft click. She exhaled, then tried the handle. It didn't move. Locked from the inside, but not mechanically. She tried again, harder. Still nothing. She moved to the windows. Everyone was shut tight, unmoving. She returned to the hallway mirror, heart racing. Her reflection looked panicked, sunken, trapped. Then the whisper returned. "You can't run from what lives inside. You!" She spun. No one. Tears rolled down her face. She wasn't trapped by Obi anymore. She was trapped by the bond, the ritual, the pot. Cynthia collapsed to the floor, sobbing. Then, through her tears, a strange clarity came. If she couldn't escape, physically, she would fight another way. She would go deeper. She would find the root, and she would burn it all. The sun was setting when Obi's convoy rolled into the quiet village. Dust lifted behind the tires like ghosts rising from the earth. Children paused their games. Mothers stopped stirring pots. Eyes followed the black SUV as it crept down the main road like a hearse carrying bad omens. Inside, Cynthia was barely conscious. Her skin had turned pale and translucent. Her lips were cracked. The once vibrant girl who left that village barely a year ago was now slumped against the leather seat like a body without weight. Obi stepped out first, wearing dark glasses and a frown of staged concern. He opened the passenger door and helped Cynthia down gently. Her feet could barely hold her. She wobbled, then collapsed into his arms. "My God!" her mother gasped from the porch. "Cynthia!" Papa Nwokedi rushed forward. "Is this my daughter? Is this the same child?" Obi lifted her like a broken doll and carried her inside the house. "We need to help her," he said. "I've done everything I can, every doctor, every healer. She's not responding." She was fine when she left us, her father snapped. "I know. That's why I brought her back. Maybe there's spiritual help here. Something we missed." Obi placed her gently on the family bed and turned to them. "I'm leaving 10 million naira for her treatment," he said, placing a brown envelope on the wooden table. "Use it however you must." Without waiting for a reply, he stepped outside, made a call, and minutes later, the convoy vanished into the dusk. Inside the small room, Cynthia opened her eyes. Barely. "Mama." Her mother sat beside her, clutching her hand. "I'm here, my child. I'm here." "Papa." "I'm here too, my daughter." Cynthia coughed, a weak sound like dry leaves rustling in the wind. "I have to tell you something." Mama Ifeoma tried to calm her. "Not now. Rest." "No," Cynthia whispered. "I don't have much time." She turned her eyes toward her father. "It was all a lie, Obi. He's not who you think he is." They both leaned in, afraid to breathe. "He used me, my blood, every month, for rituals, to make himself richer, stronger. He made me feel loved, but it was all a lie." Tears slid down her cheeks. "I found the proof on his computer. Photos, files, names of other girls like me. He takes our energy. Then we die, her mother gasped. Blood of Jesus! Her father stood, fists clenched, shaking with rage. I tried to leave, Cynthia continued, but I couldn't. It was like something invisible held me there. She reached under the mattress and pulled out a flash drive, trembling. This has everything. The evidence, the names, his secrets. Don't let him do it again. Please. Papa Nwokedi took it silently, eyes burning with fury and grief. The next weeks were a nightmare. They tried everything. Doctors, pastors, herbalists, fasting. They spent the money Obi had left on hospitals, treatments, prayers. Nothing worked. Cynthia continued to fade. Her hair thinned. Her smile disappeared. Her voice shrank to a whisper. The girl who had returned in a luxury car was now a skeleton under a blanket. The entire village watched in stunned silence. Some whispered. Some cried. Others avoided the house, afraid of the curse. She was too greedy, someone muttered. No one should rise that fast, said another. Even the women who once praised her now looked away in guilt. One afternoon, Cynthia asked to be taken outside. They placed a mattress on the front porch. She lay there, watching the clouds move. Like slow ships above the trees, her mother held her hand. I wanted to build you a mansion, Cynthia whispered. Buy you a car, put you on TV. Her mother said nothing. I thought I was smart. I thought beauty would save me. Mama Ifeoma squeezed her hand. It wasn't your fault? Cynthia smiled faintly. It was. Her eyes drifted closed. That night she died. The village mourned, but also watched. Watched the once proud pastor bury his only child. Watched the mother who once bragged cry until her voice cracked. Watched the house built with Lagos money fall into shadows. Cynthia was buried in the churchyard, beneath a tree she used to climb as a child. Her father stood before the grave, holding the flash drive like a sacred object. She died because of him, he said aloud. And the world must know. 2 weeks later, he traveled to the city. He met with a group of community lawyers, volunteers dedicated to exposing ritual crimes, especially those targeting young women. He showed them the evidence. They opened the files, photos, documents, ritual, scripts, a list of victims with Cynthia's name at the bottom marked phase complete. The lawyers were horrified. The case was built, strong, unbreakable. They filed charges against Obi for ritualistic abuse, exploitation, and murder. When the arrest warrant came, Obi didn't flinch. He was at a rooftop bar sipping champagne when they came for him. He stood, adjusted his cufflinks, and smiled. Gentlemen, what took you so long? During the trial, the court buzzed with tension. The media circled like vultures. Obi's lawyer argued it was all fabricated, that Cynthia was mentally unstable, that the files were planted, that he was merely a generous boyfriend, wrongly accused. But then, Emeka was called to testify. He entered the courtroom nervously, glancing around. When asked about his role in connecting Cynthia to Obi, he nodded. Yes, I introduced them, but I warned her. I told her Lagos wasn't safe. I made them sign an undertaking. He handed over the signed document, which clearly stated that Emeka was not responsible for what might happen between them. It helped his case. He was cleared of involvement, but not of guilt. Outside the courthouse, a reporter asked him, "Do you feel responsible for her death?" Emeka looked into the camera. She made her choice. I only opened the door. Back in the village, Cynthia's parents sat quietly on the porch. Her mother held a photo of Cynthia as a child, smiling wide, missing 2 front teeth. Her father stared into the distance. We raised her to dream, he said. We forgot to teach her how to survive. The sentence came down like thunder. Life imprisonment. The courtroom had been packed that day. Journalists, activists, villagers, city dwellers. Some had come for justice. Others had come for the spectacle. But all were riveted when the judge's gavel fell and Obi was led out in chains, still wearing designer shoes. He didn't flinch, didn't blink. He walked like a man who still believed. He owned the world. Cynthia's parents sat in the front row, stone-faced. The verdict didn't bring their daughter back, but it was something. A crack in the mask of invincibility that had protected men like Obi for too long. The headlines the next morning were explosive. Billionaire ritualist brought down by village. Girl's death. Justice for Cynthia. The Queen of Lagos becomes a martyr. Blood money empire crumbles in court, but behind bars, Obi didn't crumble. He adapted. Within weeks of entering prison, he had influence. Guards treated him with deference. Other inmates followed his orders. He paid for favors in silence, built a network of loyalists. And when the time was right, he used that network. Exactly 1 year later, under the cover of a power outage, Obi disappeared. The nation erupted in disbelief. Rumors swirled. He'd bribed a warden. A guard had helped him dig a tunnel. A politician owed him a favor. Whatever the truth, one fact remained. Obi was free. Cynthia's parents lived in a fragile peace. They believed justice had been served, that their daughter could rest in the arms of God, and the man who destroyed her would rot in a cell. They didn't know he was coming. It was a rainy night when the knock came. Papa Nwakadi opened the door without hesitation. Obi stood in the doorway, drenched, expression calm. Before the pastor could scream, Obi raised a pistol and shot him twice in the chest. Mama Ifeoma came running. Her scream piercing the air just before the third shot ended her life. By the time neighbors arrived, the killer was gone, leaving behind 2 bodies and a bloodied envelope. Inside was a simple note. Debt repaid. The village erupted in mourning once again, this time with rage. Obi's name became a curse on everyone's lips. Women wept in the marketplace. Men carried machetes through the streets, demanding vengeance. Even the children whispered ghost. Stories about the man who eats lives. The police launched a national manhunt. This time, they didn't miss. Obi was found at the airport 3 days later, disguised with a beard and passport under a false name. As he was dragged into custody, cameras captured the moment, his face still composed as if nothing had changed. But everything had. At his second trial, the court did not go easy. No more delays, no more loopholes. Obi was sentenced to death by firing squad. He showed no fear as the sentence was read, no remorse, no regret. And when he was asked if he had anything to say, he smiled faintly and said, "I don't die alone." He refused to name anyone in his secret cult, refused to betray a single soul. He had made a vow, and even death couldn't make him break it. 2 days later, at dawn, he was executed. His body was not claimed. No family came, no burial held, just silence. Back. In Lagos, Emeka watched the news in his dark apartment. He hadn't left his job at the hotel, but something had shifted inside him. He no longer smiled the same way, no longer chatted up young girls with dreams in their eyes. He kept his distance. He kept his silence. Cynthia's death had left a crack in his soul. She had walked through a door he opened, and she never came back. One day, a girl entered the hotel lobby with bright eyes and perfect lipstick. "I'm looking for someone who can connect me with a powerful man," she said sweetly. "I hear you're the guy to talk to." Emeka looked at her, then at the wall behind her, where a new framed photo now hung. It was a picture of Cynthia, smiling, radiant, alive. Beneath it, a plaque read, "Let no one rise faster than truth can follow." Emeka stood slowly. "No," he said, "not anymore." He turned and walked away. Cynthia's story spread like wildfire across WhatsApp groups, blogs, church pulpits, and girls' boarding schools. They called her the Queen Who Burned. Her tale became a warning passed from sister to sister. Don't chase golden cages. Don't trade your blood for things that shine. Beauty is not bulletproof. Her photos were shared with captions like, "She had it all, then she lost everything." Remember Cynthia before you follow the flash. Parents stopped pushing their daughters toward wealthy strangers. Some finally apologized for the pressure they had placed. Even the influencers who once envied her now used her story as a cautionary post. At the churchyard, Cynthia's grave was visited more than ever. Strangers came and left flowers, candles, notes scribbled with prayers, confessions, and regrets. Some came to weep, some came to learn, all left changed. In the end, Cynthia didn't die in vain. She dragged a monster into the light. She forced a village and a nation to face the cost of beauty without backbone, of wealth without questioning, of ambition without wisdom. Her blood watered the roots of truth, and it bloomed like fire. If you watched till the end, comment the word "Unchained," subscribe to the channel, and share this video with your friends and family.